Hey guys, it's Dr. Perry here again, Dr. Perry's podcast. I hope you've been enjoying what we've been featuring out there and learning something. So keep those questions coming in and we'll be hopefully we'll answer them all, or I'll try to answer them all. But there's so many topics out there. There's so many things that the young dentists, they don't know what they don't know. And we're just trying to get that information out there and try to help you. But today I'm really excited because I have Kathy Ells. Now I know Kathy, I've known Kathy Ells for a while, okay? And she is what we call a buyer's advocate. Now, you might be sitting there going, what the heck is a buyer's advocate? Do I need a buyer's advocate? I never had a buyer's advocate when I was starting out in practice and as a dentist. Kathy, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Dr. Perry.
Good morning. Tell me, you're a buyer's advocate. What the heck is a buyer's advocate? And why do I need a buyer's advocate? I didn't even know I needed it.
Well, you know, after being in this field for, I hate to say it, 36 years, I've come to realize that there's a lot of information that is out there and how to really sort that out. And really what's important to the buyer is very, very important. You're going to be making a huge investment into your practice and into your life. Where you want to be, what you want to do, making sure you don't make any mistakes is critical. Is critical. Is critical to you, is critical to everybody in your team. Everybody should want you to be successful in your...
Well, you know, I'm sitting here and I'm a young dentist. I'm coming out and I'm thinking, hey, geez, you know, I got a $200,000-$300,000 worth of loans. I'm in debt. You sound expensive. Is this expensive?
No, it's not expensive. For me, anyway, I charge 1% of the purchase price.
So $1 million practice is
$10,000.
Okay. So, and I got to pay all that up front?
No, that's not. I ask for $1,000 retainer, and then I don't ask for the rest of the money until we close on your practice. Now, there's the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm trying to preserve your liquidity. So if you have some money in your savings account, we know we need to go to the bank and get a loan. I don't want you to spend all that money, put it on your credit card, and then have you decline for a loan because you've just raised your credit availability. I think it's very important. Being in banking for 25 plus years, you know, this is a very, very, very important step, and I just want to make sure that we don't make any mistakes in the beginning that's going to bar you from getting that dream practice. Because another one, you know, might not come along for 3 more years.
Right.
So
I want to just, before we get more into this buyer advocates, because I'm real curious. I know my audience is going to be real curious about what you do and how you do it. A little bit more about your background. What makes you qualified? You said you worked for banks, a lot of banks, right? You've done this at banks and helped put people in practices, right? Yeah. What about, what's else? You have an accounting background?
I have an accounting background where I worked with over 200 dental practices for 7 years. Then I went into banking, and I was in banking. I was with 4 banks. I was, you know, started out way back then in 1997. It was a little leasing company called Matsko. Some of the sellers out there might remember me. Hello. Matsko was bought by Wells Fargo Bank. I left Wells Fargo. I worked for Citizens Bank for a couple of years, helping them with their underwriting. And explaining to the underwriters what they need to know when they're looking at a dental practice.
So you've seen it from all ends.
Right, from inside the banking industry.
Inside the dental practices.
Then I went to work for TD Bank. Worked for them for a couple of years, and my last stop was at Provide.
Okay.
So those were the 4 banks that I worked for over the years before going into, you know, owning my own company, Next Step Dental Consulting. Along the way, I got my MBA, I got my MSOL, which is a Master's in Organizational Leadership. So that means I have a piece of paper to tell you that I can follow, I can lead you around.
Okay, so you know your ins and outs of everything there. Okay, so before we get into exactly what you do, what a buyer advocate does, I mean, I get kind of the gist of it. You're advocating for the buyer to practice. So I'm a young dentist. I'm coming out of dental school. Do you recommend that? My lifelong dream is I want to own a practice.
Right.
So I graduate. I got some students that are graduating in May. Should I buy a practice right away?
Out of the 1,500 or so practices that I worked with, I only had one doctor out of 1,500 that actually bought a practice the next day.
And they were successful?
The next day out of school. Yes, she was very successful.
Okay.
But behind the scenes, when she was 12 years old, she was working in Dad's practice, doing the filing. When she was, 16 years old, she was in the front desk. When she was
so she knew
old, she was,
yeah.
Now becoming a hygienist. When she was, 30 years old, she became a dentist. And her father gave her the practice for her graduation gift. And she ran a very successful practice.
Okay.
But I mean, every patient knew her.
Right.
The staff knew her. The doctors.
So it's not the norm.
It is not the norm.
Okay.
No.
So most people would say, 2-3 years to kind of build up hand speed and things like that? Or
I would recommend a couple years. Go out and see what kind of practice. This is your time to figure out, do I want a small practice, a big practice, insurance practice, fee-for-service practice? What kind of practice do you want?
Right. I'm sure it's also a time that while you're doing that, you can figure out what kind of a practice can I sustain. So if I buy $1 million practice, like I'm throwing these numbers out, and we'll get into this a little bit, but if I'm taking it over, can I sustain it? Am my hand speed up enough to do that? Will the bank give me the money?
Right. So, my answer is, when you're considering a practice, you really got to look at the ADA production codes, right? Can you duplicate that dentistry on your own in your own practice? Okay. And if some of the things, let's just say, for example, you do implants. Okay. Yep. I'm the buyer. I come in. I don't do any implants yet. Right.
So we lost all that income.
Right. So what happens to all those patients now that have implants in the works,
right,
lining up for implants? That has to get either one, referred out,
right,
or two, maybe the seller will want to stay on for a little while, finish their cases, while you can go get training, and then you come on board, but still, it's something that you'll want to
look into.
Look into.
So Kathy, we'll get more into the numbers, okay? Because I know my listeners want to hear the numbers and try to understand. But walk me through. Now I'm at the point. I've been out 2 or 3 years. I know what I can produce. I know how much money I make because my W-2 is going to show it when I show the bank, right?
Yeah, the W-2 will show.
So if I say I can produce $1 million, I better be making $350,000 at least, right, or something like that, right?
Yes.
So you can't lie about it. You gotta be truthful about it. You're gonna know it.
So what's hard is that sometimes like if somebody's paid on collection, and if your the insurances you take, you have huge write-offs. Yeah. And you're not collecting that much money. So say you have $100 procedure.
Right.
Okay, and of that procedure, instead of maybe taking a 20% write down, okay, you're actually taking 50%, right? Because there are some insurance companies that are paying 30% on the dollar.
Right.
Right. So now, if you're only collecting at 30%, that's going to reflect in your W-2 because your W-2 is being based on the collection. So if you're only getting paid 30%. That other 70% is getting written off.
Right.
And so, but that's where you need to explain yourself. Okay, that's where you need to explain and keep kids as to what it is that you're actually producing.
Okay.
Okay, I do these 2740s. I do these.
And you help the buyer understand that.
Right. So I coach my buyers and say, look, know what kind of dentistry you're doing. Record it, write it down. I did 10 2740s today. Okay, whatever.
ADA codes. We're talking.
ADA codes.
I just want to make sure all my audience understands what the codes are.
The ADA codes,
okay.
Right? So make sure you write those things down. That's going to be important because when, if you're trying to explain to the bank, well, I actually did do this many, but I didn't get paid on that. Okay, the bank could say, well, okay, I guess we don't have to use that rule of thumb, that traditional, Well, I'll take the W-2 times 30% or 35%, right? So,
Right.
knowing that's going to be important.
So walk me through what Next Step Dental does as a buyer's advocate. So I'm at the 3 years threshold, okay? And now I'm saying, geez, I finally figured out, I've talked to my significant other, my wife, my husband, whatever, my family members, and I want to be in this area, and I want to practice in this area. I'm ready to buy. Should I come to you right away?
Usually what ends up happening is usually you get on the internet, right?
Okay.
And you start searching, right? And you start looking, and then you start visiting all of the brokers, and you start...
Are you a broker?
No, I am not a broker. I am not a broker.
You almost say it like it's a dirty
I'm
word.
not, because I'm not the person that's going to have an open house. I'm not the person that's going to advertise your practice for sale. If I happen to come across a practice that is for sale, and the seller has come to me as a friend and as somebody, maybe I put them in practice 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and they've reached back out to me and they said, hey, Kathy, can you help me with my practice? And I can say, well, where are you? Well, I'm in this town here. Well, I just so happen to know a buyer that's looking in that town.
Right,
and I'll match the buyer and the seller,
Okay.
is what I'm doing. But I'm not going to take the place of the broker as far as, having open houses and, doing all the brokery type things.
You're working for the buyer predominantly.
Now, what I will do is, there's really 3 steps to buying a practice.
Okay.
The first step is finding a practice.
Okay.
Right? So it can be very challenging, right? It can be hard.
But you'll help in that process too, right?
So I'll help in that process where I will go out and search the area that you're looking for. Couple of things that you want to think about. Most doctors will have this number one question, actually, by the way, is they'll say, should I buy a home now or wait until I buy a practice?
Or should I buy my Lamborghini now?
Yeah.
Later.
True story. Yeah. Hold on the Lamborghini.
Okay, so hold on.
Definitely tell you that. Number one, the banks, even if it's a day of closing, and if the banks find that out and it messes up their cash flow, it will stop. That deal will not fund if it messes up the cash flow. Now, the second one is buying a home, right? Most doctors will ask me this question. I found a really nice house, and I said, well, the issue is banks do have a radius, right? So they want you to be within 60 minutes of commute time to that practice.
Right.
Or some banks will have mileage. We want you to be within 50 miles of that practice.
Okay.
And the reason why is because they don't want you getting burned out by sitting in a car, on a train, whatever your means of transportation.
Makes sense.
Right. So yeah, it does. So the banks have thought about all of this.
They want to protect their money. If they're going to lend it to you, they want to make sure they're going to get it back, right?
That's right. They want to make sure they get it back. Which the default rate for banks is very low. Okay, it's very low. Now, it's not saying that if you don't do your research, you could struggle, right? Mm-hmm. So you might not go into default, but you could struggle. And so you don't want to struggle if you don't have to, all right? You're going to have too many other things that are going to pay attention that you're going to need to pay attention to in your practice.
Okay, I want to focus a little bit more on this now. So I'm at the 3-year threshold. We've kind of say we found the practice. Okay. Now I'm talking with you, and we've gone over a few months. We found a practice together. You found it. I found it, and we figured it out. So now, what are the steps I have? What are you going to be doing for me?
So I will help you with the due diligence.
What do you mean due diligence? That sounds like the big word. Yeah.
That's scary.
What do you mean by
what it is? No.
What is due diligence?
So I break it down into 4 parts.
Okay.
Okay. So you have your financial, you have your operational, you have your clinical, and you have your legal.
Okay.
Okay. So those are your four parts of the due diligence. So the first part, which is your financial due diligence, this is where we go over the cash flow.
Of the practice or
of the cash flow of the practice, right? So we look at things like what is the gross collection, what are the add backs, and most importantly, what is the net income? Okay, after you go through these add backs. So people ask me, well, what is an add back? Well, if you have your Lamborghini and you're Dr. Seller and you now have your Lamborghini, and you write off that Lamborghini $2,500 a month
Through your
in
practice.
payments through your practice, that all becomes an add back.
Or you have your kids that are 3 years old that are on the practice.
That's right. That's the maintenance man, right?
Yeah, yeah,
so yes, the maintenance man.
So you take out all the frills.
Right. We take out, and we come down to anything that's discretionary, we get rid of. Okay. And so now we come down to the new adjusted net income. And when the brokers show you a practice, they show you that adjusted net income. They'll show you the growth.
And the broker's for the buyer?
The brokers are for the seller.
They're for the seller.
Right. So they're for the seller. So, they'll show you the tax return or the financial statements. They'll show you the discretionary.
But they won't take out all the stuff.
No, they'll show you.
Yeah.
Sometimes people can get a little aggressive in that area. Like they'll say, well, we're going to normalize it. Well, normalize it according to who?
Yeah.
Right. So that's another area. If that practice is used to running on those perks, if you as the buyer come in there and start taking away, say, the staff perks and different things,
right.
the staff isn't going to be very happy with you. The hardest thing right now in today's day and age is staffing. Like, you can't find them, you can't get them.
Right. You can't keep them.
You gotta keep it. You can't keep them. Like, you just gotta keep them happy. So now we come down to the net. We come down to the net income, and usually that's where the banks and the brokers cut it off. Now you have your adjusted net income.
So it might be $1 million. Let's throwing numbers out. It might be $1 million practice, but after the net adjustment, it might be an $800,000 practice.
Right.
Okay.
Right. For collections.
Right.
Right. So when you get down to the bottom line and you have your net income,
Right.
okay, from there you're going to have to just subtract your debt service, okay, which is the money that you have to pay to the bank every month.
Is that my student loans now and everything else?
Not yet. This is the banks get paid first. Before your student loan, the banks get paid first.
Okay, they're going to get paid.
Okay, so now we have our adjusted net income after debt service.
All right.
Okay, so now what you're just asking.
Now, Kathy, everything we're talking about, if I'm looking at this video, I can go to your website and I can get some examples of what.
Yeah, there's a lot of information.
And we'll have this out on the podcast, so if they want to go see Next Step Dental.
Consulting.com.
Consulting.com.
I know it's long, but it's easy. I say this all the time. It's long, but it's easy. NextStepDentalConsulting.com.
All right.
Right? That's where you're going to find
They
it.
can find out all this information. They can get in touch with you and do all that stuff.
Yes.
Okay. So
and they can ask me questions.
They can ask you questions. That's even
can.
better. All right, so let's keep going through our story. So now we got our net income, we've got our add backs back.
So now the next thing that you asked me about was student loans, right? So now we're talking about global debt service coverage, which is even scarier than due diligence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So global debt service coverage is going to take into effect, take the collections minus your expenses minus your debt service. Now we're going to minus your personal expenses.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to minus your student loans, your credit cards, anything that's on your credit report.
Okay.
Okay, they're going to go and they're going to subtract that. But then the banks are going to take it one step further and they're going to subtract what they call a living adjustment. Okay, this is where you actually get to eat.
Oh, I
Okay,
can have a
so
beer, maybe go see a movie.
Right. So you got food, electricity.
Yeah, rent.
Right. Well, rent is already as part of the deductions. But you have living expenses, right, that
Right.
you has been unaccounted for up to this point. That's what makes it, once we subtract that out, that's what makes it the global debt service coverage. Okay, so that's the financial piece of it. The second...
and you're holding my hand through this whole process.
Yes. I go through the whole thing with you.
I'm not alone.
Yeah. No, you're not alone.
Because I'm a dentist. I don't know all the numbers. I can understand some of
They
it.
can do this on their own.
Yeah.
Right? But you really can't do this on your own.
So wait.
You don't know what you're looking for.
Well, you bring up a very good point here. So what's the biggest mistakes that you see that people that aren't using you are people like you? How many are there of you? I know there's only one Kathy Ells, but
That's right.
But how many buyer advocates are there?
There's not very many. Now, some people will act as a buyer's advocate and will say, I'm your buyer's advocate. I'm a CPA. I'm an attorney.
Yeah.
I'm your buyer's advocate. Okay, but not necessarily. Okay, CPAs are basically historical. They look at historical cash flows. They apply a lot of great information. They run spreadsheets. They counsel you through all the different things that you need to do. They're a great resource historically, right? So they take the historical numbers.
Right.
You might have a mentor, right? A Dr. Seller. You might have a professor. You might have somebody from school that says, I've done this and I will show you how to do this.
Okay.
It's like, okay, you've done it once. Okay, no disrespect.
Right.
You've done it once, maybe
Right.
twice. So, going through and having somebody, I'm a deal maker. Okay, one of the things,
Because you've been on all sides of it.
I've been on all sides and look, I know you've been looking for a practice for 3 years. I know. I get it. You finally found your dream practice. You don't want to mess it up now.
Right.
Now is not the time because you might not get another opportunity for a while, right? So you need to have somebody, like, even if when I go in and do the operational due diligence, okay, so let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
The operational due diligence is where I go on site, either me or somebody with me, my staff will go with me on site. We'll go on site. We'll look around at
The books.
at the
schedule.
the practice management system.
Okay.
Right. So you look at the practice management stuff. We pull the reports. And we get a bunch of information from the reports. Now, the banks usually only ask for like production collection numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, I have like 10 or 15 reports that I look at. Okay, what am I looking at? I'm looking at active number of patients. I'm looking at
Real patients now.
I'm looking at the ADA codes, making sure you can
Right.
So usually what I do is I give about a 50-page report to the doctors that says, like, look, here's this report. This is what let's just pick on accounts receivable. Here's the accounts receivable report. This is what the accounts receivable report does. Okay, this is the accounts receivable in this practice, and this is what and this is the KPI, or key performance indicator, which is kind of like the
where it could be.
Right, where the statistics should be.
Right.
Or the range of statistics.
And it's either above or below.
Right. And then, like, if there's something that's not right with it, let's say there's 30% in over 90 days, right?
Yeah.
So that's really super high. So then I go back and I say, okay, look, let's not let that kill the deal. Let's understand that a little bit. Let's look at that specific, look at that number, and let's understand it. Oh, okay. The doctor, in looking at this, still has invoices out there from, 1997 where the patient owes him 10 cents.
Right.
And if the patient ever comes back,
he's going
to get his 10 cents.
Right.
Okay? So you could have issues like that where it's like, okay, this is really not an issue. All right? So kind of picking and choosing, really what is an issue and what's not an issue. That's not
and you
an
help
issue.
guide them
Right.
that way.
You pass on that stuff.
Right.
Right? So, you could be the person that says, I'm going to go and I'm going to do this myself, and I'm going to go look up all these different things, and I'm going to make my own comparison. But that's great. I'm glad you're getting that education of understanding that. But, like, when you pull it all together, at the end of the day, does it really make sense to chase 10 cents?
So do you get everything prepared for the buyer, not only with the practice itself, but getting their financials ready to present to a bank too?
Yes.
So in other words, like, say for instance, you've already established that they can produce what's being done in that particular practice from the ADA codes. They say, okay, you do very similar things. However, you do a couple of extra things. You may do Botox, you may do sleep apnea, you may do same-day crowns that they don't do. You do implants that they don't do. So here you are, you can sustain this particular practice, but we also do show them that if you
Here's
do
the
upside of where you're going to be.
Here's the upside. Like, these are all the areas that you can grow that practice, right? So, maybe it is that they're underutilizing operatories. Right. Maybe it's that Dr. Seller just likes to do kind of bread and butter dentistry.
Or maybe they could add more operatories.
Right. Or maybe they can add more operatories depending on what their lease looks like. Right. And so that's one of the, we go through all of that stuff, right? We look at when we're looking at the operational piece of it, We look at, getting all this information, and then translating it into a working document that you can use when you get into that practice. And so it's not a surprise. Let's take out as many surprises as we can.
So they have a better understanding.
So they have a better understanding.
And that makes sense. That
Right.
makes sense.
So they understand. The third one is clinical due diligence, okay, which I know nothing of. Okay.
So who do you get for that one?
I get you.
Yeah.
No, right. So clinical due diligence. I give you a checklist, okay, and yes, I know what's on the checklist. I made it.
Right.
Right. So, I give you a checklist, and I say, okay, this is your scavenger hunt. Go find all of these things in the office and make notes. Right. Make notes on it, and make sure you say, okay,
Give me, for instances, give me some
for
examples.
instance, the practice is advertised at having 5 operatories. Okay.
Is there really 5 operatories or 4?
You get in there and, oh, no, really it's only 4 operatories and we have an additional 1 plumbed.
Oh.
Or the chair is still in the box.
Oh.
So we do have an operatory and it is plumbed and there is a chair in there. It's just not hooked up.
Well,
Right? So
that's a problem.
So, right, could be a problem. So anyway, going through the clinical, but more so the different things that like doctors do. Okay, so for instance, looking at the spore counts, making sure that the water system is up to date, making sure you don't have like stuff in your drains,
okay.
stuff like that, things that like you guys do, like that's really important. I point out like what I think you should be looking for.
Mhm.
Okay, and it's up to you to go in there. Make sure the chair goes up and down, left and right,
Yeah.
side to side.
Make sure you have the
handpieces
instruments,
work,
the
right? The
everything.
hand pieces work. This works.
The autoclave works.
The autoclave works, right? Exactly. That.
The lights
consider
work.
dishwasher.
Go on and off. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Just like buying a house in some respects.
Yeah, just like buying a house, right? So I'm not the person that's gonna understand,
Right.
your drainage system and
Right,
stuff
right.
like that. Like I'm not the one that.
But if you've been a
goes
clinical
in-
dentist and been out there for 3 or 4 years, you should definitely know that.
Yeah, you should definitely know that.
So what's the last?
The last one is legal,
Uh-oh.
right? So on the legal side, on a high level, right? I like to do in my research to find out, do you have a clear license? Does the seller have a clear license? Has there been anything?
Any
that-
liens or something?
Right, or liens,
Legal.
bank liens, but. More so, is there any derogatory information that's out there about the doctor that I can find?
Right.
Right? Now, I'm not an FBI agent
Right.
or anything like that that's
Right.
going to like dig into it, right? But on a surface, I'm going to look. I'm going to make sure that if there is something there, for instance, in 2007, there was a case against you because you didn't record the notes properly.
Mhm.
Okay, and the board charged you with not doing it properly. Okay, and they made a recommendation that for the next 2 years they're going to review your notes to
Right.
make sure your notes are done accurately.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well that stays on your record.
Yep.
Right? So it stays on there. Now, anytime anything goes onto your record, a bank is going to ask you.
Yeah, and you got to
Okay?
explain
It's
it.
not to, it's not to get the seller upset or anything like that. And this is not something Dr. Byer should be asking Dr. Seller. By no means should Dr. Byer be asking those types of questions to Dr. Seller. Okay? That should be handled by the professionals.
Yeah.
If we see it, we know it, don't be surprised about it. We'll get down to the bottom of it. Still not a deal killer.
Okay.
Okay, so if there was something that was a deal killer, okay, say fraud in the practice, that's a deal killer.
That's a deal killer.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a deal killer. But for something that is something that
It's minor.
right is minor in nature, or something that like if you're going to be running your dental office, you're going to be doing it different,
Right.
right? Then we say, okay, it's not an issue. Don't even bring it up. Not
Okay.
even an issue with the seller.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Seller wants to, take their masterpiece and sell it because it's their masterpiece. They put all their blood, sweat, and tears into it, and they don't want it. They don't want you to pick it apart and make them feel like it's not.
Right. No, I get it. So you've given a lot of information here. So you've gone through, looking at the financials of a practice. You've talked with the buyer themselves. You've looking at the seller. You're looking at practice management software. You're looking at clinical. You're looking at operations. You're looking at staff. You're assessing everything. I want to come to this question because my audience is out there and they're going, okay, I'm paying her 1%. It looks like she's doing a lot. I mean, a lot of stuff that maybe I don't know everything about, and maybe open my eyes to things. So what happens if we get to a practice and you come to that point and it says, hey, don't buy it. This is bad. I got to pay you 1%?
Or somebody, yeah, no.
How does this work?
No, you don't. So if there's a...
you say goodbye to me and that's it?
No, we just go on to the next practice.
And then it becomes
Right.
the next thing.
And then it just goes on to the next practice. When it starts to get too excessive, say we've done this now 3 times.
Right.
And you still haven't been able to make a decision,
Right.
I'm starting to question you as the buyer.
Okay.
Okay? Are you picking the wrong practices? Are you picking practices that we should know right out of the gate, like this is not something? Are you pushing me to do like a cash flow analysis or
Right.
whatever on a practice that I know committed fraud?
Right,
Okay?
right.
Whatever it might be.
Right.
So when you start to get to a couple of practices, I'll let you know
What's going on?
Right, what's going on, and if I have concerns and stuff like that. Maybe you're not ready.
Right.
Okay, and a lot of times, if doctor buyers see like their friends going out and buying
They
practices,
feel like they have to buy one.
and they feel like, okay, like I'm going to go do what they did because
Right.
I'm going to get this practice before they're going to get it, or whatever. Becomes competitive. You have to just say, if you're not ready, you're not ready.
Okay.
Maybe somebody else is, you're not.
Look.
And a lot of this stuff depends on the seller.
Okay.
Who is the seller going to pick?
Right.
Right?
It may not be you, right?
Right. It might not be you. It might be, and it might not be because of the money. Say you have Dr. Seller, and Dr.
Maybe
Seller
a different philosophy
says,
or something?
my right, exactly. It's a different philosophy. Maybe it's corporate dentistry.
Right.
Right?
I got more money.
Right. Well, you know what? Maybe the seller wants to continue to work. Right? So not necessarily more money.
Yeah.
I don't really necessarily think it's more money, believe it or not. I think it's really what the seller wants to do. If the seller wants to continue to work, then...
But the numbers may not work for him to stay there, right?
Right.
Or her to stay there.
Right. So on an independent level,
Right.
okay, maybe they can't afford to have Dr. Seller there.
Right.
Okay, on a corporate level, they want Dr. Seller to be there.
Right.
Okay, so it really depends on what the seller wants to do, and it might not have anything to do with you
Right.
as the buyer. So all situations are different. 1,500 transactions, 1,500 differences.
I'm sure. So you have a wealth of information. I want to just break it down. So we've gone through a lot of information here. I know we're going to have a lot of questions from our audience out there. I want to just kind of end things a little bit because we can go in so many directions, okay? But I really want you to give me 3 things that you could give to our audience to say, okay, you need to, before you do anything, before you even contact me, you ask these questions to yourself and then ask what?
Be prepared.
When you say be prepared how?
Be prepared. Okay, so I work with the banks and will get you a pre-approval. Okay, this is where the banks say, yes, on a high level, we're interested in working with you. Okay, and we will issue $1 million, loan.
Loan, yeah.
Right. Have your CV ready. Know your production and collection.
Know your debt, right?
Right, know your debt. Most important that the banks will dig in and put their heels down. If you don't have 10% liquidity, okay, so what is liquidity? Cash. If you don't have 10% in cash, okay, the banks are going to...
They want to see that in a bank account.
Right, they want to see it in a bank account. So be prepared. If you write down that you have $100,000 in the bank, be prepared to show your bank statements that prove that you have $100,000.
At least 3 months worth? How far back did I have to? How long?
Some banks will go back 3 months. Some banks will just say, "No, just give it to me today."
Okay.
Whatever, and then they usually only verify it that one time, unless the underwriter gets it and the underwriter says, "You know what? We want to see an updated."
Yeah.
For whatever reason, like maybe they see like a lot of cash and stuff going through there, or high expenses, or something or other like that. And so what happens if that's the case? Well, maybe you need to bring on a cosigner, right? So maybe you need to bring on a cosigner, but they're going to look at that person the same way that they look at you. So if that person is also not financially stable,
right?
Okay, then they're not going to help you. Or if they're more in credit card debt or more in student loan debt or less in cash, that person's not going to help you.
So even if I have high student loans, I can still get a loan, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So you as a buyer's advocate, you're not only looking at the practice, you're looking at the individual, you're seeing if they're mentally ready, physically ready, and everything of that nature. You're helping them develop and get their portfolio together, so to speak, to present to banks, to present to the sellers, and get them ready for a practice of ownership.
Right.
And you do all that.
Yep. And so there's a third part. So the first part is finding a practice.
Right.
Step 1.
Yep.
Step 2 is the due diligence process that we've been discussing.
Right.
And then step 3 is critical as well, which is the post-sale.
Yes.
Right.
Do you just leave them after that?
No. So, we can work with you on credentialing, getting your insurances,
HR, all that stuff.
HR, the
payroll,
accounts receivable, which ends up being like the hardest thing. This whole transaction stuff, it's like the accounts receivable is the hardest thing. Getting like the staff to collect money, understanding how, is this $100 for Dr. Seller or is this $100 that we collected for Dr. Buyer?
Right.
Okay, because Dr. Buyer wants to hold on to as much cash as they can.
Right.
Dr. Seller says, that's my $100, I want my $100 now.
Right.
Okay, so that's a big part of it. And then, your everyday operations, understanding QuickBooks, right? You're a practice
quarterly
owner,
taxes,
right? Now you're a practice owner, so now you have to learn how to do your QuickBooks,
right?
You have to learn your payroll. Every week you have to call your payroll in. Every other week,
and that's all part of your service.
Yes, so that's the third. But that's not part of the 1%. That's an additional fee.
Right.
So so I charge an additional fee. So the first step 1 is $500 to help you find a practice. My fee is $500. To do the due diligence is the 1%, which includes that $500.
Okay.
Okay, and then the third step, if you need it, and depending on, I want credentialing help, I want this help, I want that help, is $200 an hour.
Okay. So you can, and if you don't have the answer, which I find that very unlikely that you wouldn't have the answer, but you have people that in the industry that can help the individual.
Exactly. So it's not only me.
Right.
I'm not the only person here. I work with CPAs. I work with
accountants.
I work with attorneys. I work with brokers. I work with schools.
Right.
I work with, insurance people that are out there, life, disability, general liability, workman's compensation, medical insurance. Like all of these people are all part of the team. Of the team. Now, if you'd like to invite me back some other time, we can talk about startups. Yeah. I've done a ton of them.
So startup versus
an acquisition,
buying an existing practice.
Like if you're in the business to go find a practice and you've been 3 years, okay, and you still can't find a practice and you're like, okay, that's it. I'm just going to go stop my practice.
Right.
There's a lot of
pros and cons.
Right, there's pros and cons, but there's unicorns. I call them unicorns that are out there. So I'll leave it at that. So you'll have to come back. And ask
well,
me
I know we're going to have a lot of questions. We're going to have a lot.
What my unicorn is, right?
You've given us a lot of information. I wish I had a buyer's advocate when I was starting out. I think it would have made.
You were the start of it. See, you started this. You created this. I want you to know.
Well, I appreciate that. And I know we've known each other for a long time, and I appreciate you coming on and helping to share your knowledge with the audience that's out here. And we're going to be back again. But other than that, this is Dr. Perry's podcast. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you share this information, because the more people that know about it, the more it's going to help people. Anyway, have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye for now. Thanks, Kathy.
Bye. Thank you.